Okay, everyone, we'll get started. Thanks for joining. Welcome to our webinar today, February 23rd. Today we have on a special guest, Adam Schular with Gemini. Adam, if you want to introduce yourself.
I'm Adam Schular. I work with Gemini Heli in Grand Prairie, and we do a lot of infrared scanning and forestry support, and this will focus mostly on the infrared scanning we do in the area.
Awesome, thanks for that. And so I'm Branden Soroka, founder of Forteck, and I typically am the one hosting these webinars. So yeah, we're happy to have Adam on today. He's going to be talking a lot about scanning for thermal scanning following pile burning. So yeah, so Gemini Helicopters is a small responsive company located in northwestern Alberta and northeastern British Columbia. Their pilots can accomplish anything industry demands or challenges in northern climates. They also provide amazing experiences for the adventurous. I think that's taken it off the website.
Yep. Okay, this infrared scanning. This picture in the background is just a still of the video we take, and these are typically a lower resolution camera that we use, just because the infrared, it doesn't need that high resolution. Every pixel it differentiates, and this is just an image of taken off a video. So we'll just advance the next slide here. So on the infrared scanning for the mills, we find it is very important for due diligence. It is to show that the mills doing everything they can to prevent forest fires in the summertime from the previous slash pile burning. So there have been holdover fires that have started forest fires. And unfortunately, if the forest fire starts from a slash pile burn, the mill or whoever lit it is responsible for the entire firefighting cost. And just to give you an example, a short or a small fire that happened in the Grand Prairie area probably about 6 years ago ended up to be about 75 hectares. And the cost of that after day one was over $1 million. By day two, $1.5 million, and they were going to charge the mill. And we were lucky enough that we scanned these piles, and all the piles shown that they were out. And while recording the video on the scan, we actually came across the ignition point of the forest fire, which was a forestry employee, like an ag and forestry employee, when they were doing pine beetle burning. So it was a due diligence. It prevented the mill from $500,000 or $1.5 million bill. And that was just on once. And since I've been doing it the last 20 years, that has came up about 4 times. And each bill could have been over $1 million that would have been to the mill. But because we had video proof that these fires were out, it was the due diligence that said that they were in the right and they did not get charged for it. So it also helps if there is a hot spot, we can get on those spots a little bit sooner before forest fire season officially starts and we get the really hot and dry days. So it's the best way to mitigate your fire risk, that if you're starting any slash piles. And especially early season forest fires, there is, of course, when it's right after the snow melts, nothing's greened up yet. If you get a couple windy, hot, dry days, that's when the fires will start. And unfortunately, that's also the time we want to be scanning too. And I'll go into that a little bit more, but so it's a very time sensitive. And we want it to be dry enough that we can scan, but not dry enough that it's actually going to start a forest fire. Let's go to the next slide.
Branden, if you want to pull the video up, I think that was the next one as well.
Oh, yeah.
So this is an older video. It's probably about 6 years ago or so. And about 50 seconds into it, you'll see like the little white spots and also the red spots. Those are actually hot spots. So on the camera, as we're flying over, we can find, like we'll scan a very large area at a time. Essentially, if we fly the perimeter of a cut block and it's less than probably 400 meters wide, 400 to 500 meters wide, we could scan the whole block from one angle. And all we're looking for is one of those pixels in there, a different color. So in there, that's our initial spot. Then as we get closer, it'll show us exactly what temperature and where the spot is. So we'll just from the air, you scan from a distance, you pick up these hot spots and circle around and then confirm they're actually hot. There's, from experience, we have to fly a certain angle, depends on lighting conditions, sun conditions, and temperatures. So you always try to put the helicopter in the prime position to get these hot spots. And this one, these hot spots showed up from probably about a quarter mile away. So they're pretty easy to find if the conditions are right. And I'll go to that a little bit more with weather conditions once we're going on there, but that gives you an idea of what we're actually looking for in the camera. The camera is a lot more clear than what you see in the picture beside you. The pixelated version, it's after downloading many times, but in the camera, we have two ways to look at it. We can look at it through either the lens itself. So you're looking at a very small picture, but you're focused on it. Or you're looking at the screen, which a screen is about the size of what you would see on your computer right now. It's only about 3 or 4 inches by 4 or 5 inches. So it's not that big of a screen, but it's easy to pick up the hot spots.
Awesome. Do we have any questions in the chat, Riley?
Yep, Matt Madness is curious which make and model of camera that we recommend for scanning.
Okay, I've been using multiple different cameras, and the one we're using right now, the two we're using right now, they're all from FLIR, and they're and we're using the handheld cameras. And the reason why we're using the handheld cameras is once you get a helicopter mounted camera, it is first of all, it's cost prohibitive and it's limited to that machine. So with a handheld camera, we can scan out our side window. And with that, you're a lot more flexible. The camera operator can scan off to the side, up or down, whatever he needs, independent of what the helicopter is doing as much. With the helicopter mounted cameras, you have to fly, well, there's drawbacks and cons, or bonuses and cons to each one. But we found the helicopter mounted cameras really limit your time over the block, as in you spend more time. But the handheld cameras, we're off to the side a bit more. And the numbers we're using are the FLIR GFX 320s, the FLIR T640s, or the FLIR T1020s. What we try to look for is something that gives us GPS position on the camera itself and very good resolution on hotspots. Like for example, the GF 320 is a lower resolution camera, but the detail or the differential between the temperature is much higher because it has got it's a cooled sensor, so it's more accurate to pick up hotspots. The newer cameras like the T1020 or T1000, they're a higher resolution camera, and but we find the higher resolution is just as good as a liquid cooled camera. And with those are the three main models we use, and almost everything we use is from FLIR.
Awesome. Thanks for that answer, Adam.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Let's skip ahead one more.
Yeah. So into machine types.
Okay, so previous years we were using Bell Jet Ranger, but due to market conditions, the machine is getting old. Parts are getting obsolete, so we've moved up into newer machines, newer technology. And by using a larger machine, a lot of the times we do take personnel from the mills on board with us. And so we can get a couple of jobs done at the same time, because if you have to do a final clearance or something to that effect, check on the blocks, plan silviculture, you can do that at the same time as we're scanning with the larger machines. So we've been using the A-Stars, and new to us as of this year are the EC135s. These are newer machines that there's only 8 in Canada. We have 2 of them, and they're the preferred machine from a pilot's point of view, and also on the safety point of view. They have twin engine safety, all redundant systems. And for scanning, we got a larger window to scan out of, so we can have more movement with the camera angle. And one critical thing we find in scanning is speed. A lot of times, if the blocks are far apart, we're limited by how long we can fly in the day by daylight. So the faster we can get between the blocks, the better it is. So a machine that goes faster, like the EC135, is almost double the speed of the Jet Ranger that we're using. So that makes up for, you could get more scan time in a day versus a slower machine. Because once we're over the block, it's only a few minutes and then you're off to the next block. So to do an entire FMA in Alberta, sometimes we're looking at 2 or 3 days. With a fast machine, we could be looking at maybe only 1 day. So it is critical between blocks to have your speed, because we're typically going against daylight. A couple more things about the A-Star. So it's just, we have a scanner usually in the front seat, and you can take up to 4 people in the back. And that is on top of the scanner. We have about 110 knot cruise with the EC135s. We're anywhere from 125 to 135 knot cruise. So it might not look like much, but after an hour, you're making up about 10 to 20% more ground on by using a faster machine. And the other thing about the EC135 is safety features. Never mind just for scanning, but just for general aviation use. The machine with twin engines, this is one of the few machines that if you have any failure of any system, you can just fly away. You just carry on and keep on moving. Most other machines like A-Stars, Jet Rangers, if you have an issue, you're landing right now. The EC135, you go land in an airport, or you go land in someplace safe. That's a new thing to Canada. The only people that had these before were RCMP and the Ontario Provincial Police, but they want it for safety. And this is the machine that's the same as what Stars is using, just a little bit smaller. It's just one row less of seating than what Stars has. So when it comes to safety, this is the machine that it is rated one of the safest machines out there. And a lot of the times working over the cut blocks and areas in the FMAs where we're always flying over the trees. And if anything is to go wrong, we can still fly away. It's one of the few that can do that. So we'll carry on to the next slide.
Yeah, thanks for that explanation, Adam.
We do have a question in the chat. It's from Theo, and he is asking if the EC-120 is still on the list of helicopters used at Gemini?
No, the 120s we don't use anymore. So everything we have, we just have the A-Stars and 135s now. The 120s were close to the Jet Ranger, but it's going the same way as the Jet Ranger as the parts are getting obsolete. They stopped making those machines, like the 120 and the Jet Ranger. So parts are getting cost prohibitive.
Adam, I think you just wanted to explain on the imaging there, the temperature.
Yes. So when on that video we've seen previously, this was one of the hotspots that came up. And as you see on your screen, it'll show you like there's a spot temperature. On the camera, we can just focus into a few pixels and it'll tell us exactly what that temperature is. So when we come over, we'll change the spot temp and it'll tell us what temperature, and it shows up on the screen. And then we'll usually just take an image of that. And this is just an image of the temperature that shows up there. So when we're looking at hotspots, I've seen hotspots as low as 30 degrees Celsius. But as soon as you fly over it, we actually use the helicopter to blow off the top layer of dust. And once we use that, we'll come back, we'll back up, put the camera viewfinder on the hotspot again, and all of a sudden we'll see a temperature like this. And that's just a few millimeters below the surface, because we use the helicopter to blow off the ash on top, which acts as an insulation. And then once that wind comes in there, we'll back off. And now we see 60 degrees or greater than 160 degrees. And it's definitely burning underneath there. If we were to go down and land, like that's another thing with carrying extra personnel on, we'll land at these spots and go kick around or use a shovel and dig down. And all of a sudden we'll find a really hot spot. And that hotspot will migrate through. As soon as we get a hot wind, it'll start blowing that little bit of ash and blow it into the grasses beside. So this is a good way. This is where the cameras show a good way to get the hotspots and find them. But sometimes, like this is one that's been exposed. If you look at the green area, like just to the top left of it, that's more typical of what we're looking for when we're finding these hotspots. It's only going to be maybe 30, 40 degrees Celsius, but it's 30 or 40 degrees Celsius above any other temperature that's out there. So it gives you an idea of what, how accurate the cameras are and what we can look for.
We've got two questions in the chat here. Tom was wondering, are you able to generate a map from the geo-referenced images, or can you only obtain a video?
So we can do a map, but it's what we usually do is we do a track log from the aircraft GPS or a handheld GPS that we have with us. And we timestamp that track log to the video. So you can just look along the track log, and with that timestamp, you can reference either the video or the track of where it is. So yeah, with the video. But the other thing we do is on the track logs, we'll just mark, okay, there's a hotspot there, and then write down what video number it is. Because usually we only do one video per block unless the blocks sort of run together. So there's a couple ways to geo-reference where your video is. And on the camera, this one doesn't show it, but one of the cameras we use actually has the GPS position embedded in the video. And it would be displayed at the bottom where it says the Fuller logo at the bottom.
All right, we got one more question from Theo. He's asking, is the technology you utilize able to create LiDAR scanned images while doing thermal scanning?
On that one, I would say no, just because with the LiDAR images, you need overlap. Like you need, I believe it's about 30% overlap to get a good texture. And with the infrared, there's not enough detail to get to do essentially create a LiDAR layer on it. So you would have to overlap that 30% on every part of the block to get a proper LiDAR image. So on that one, I would say no. But on the other token, it's possible to carry another camera with you and just video or take another small LiDAR system camera with you if we needed to. But we wouldn't be able to do it from the infrared.
Cool. Thanks. Any other questions, Riley?
Nope, that's it for now.
Okay, that's the next one. Okay, some things that are critical for infrared scanning is the timing of the scan and our weather conditions. So with infrared, we are limited by daylight. So daylight, if we're scanning on a clear blue day, our scan time is very limited. By the time that the sun gets probably about 15 to 20 degrees above the horizon, we are done. So that only gives us about an hour or two of scan time, unless it is overcast and cloudy. But if it's overcast and cloudy, it can't be previous or it can't be post rain. And the reason for that is if the ground is wet, it will actually cover up the hot spots. So that little wet layer of ground is enough to shield the hot spot from the camera. So that's why we need to start when it is warm. We need 3 to 5 drying days before we scan. And by that is sunshining days or windy days with no moisture. So even frost in the morning, like a heavy frost in the morning, is not great for scanning. So a good example is referring back to the video we watched earlier. That video was done on a block when we scanned it the second time. The first time we scanned, we found a hot spot. We went back in 3 days later after drying days, like 3 good days after, and then we found 3 more hot spots. And that was because the ground was actually wet when we scanned the first time. So the first time, it was we were just lucky we actually caught the hot spot. So now that's why we have to stick with the 3 to 5 drying days before we go. If we go right after a rain or a light snow, your scan is not that accurate, and you could be liable to get a hot spot in there that we would have missed. So, and the other thing is we can't have any snow on the block. Snow is a good insulator for the infrared camera too. Any layer of snow will automatically cover up a hot spot. So it doesn't take much, especially stuff as you get further north in Alberta, you get a lot more peat. We have found the peat hotspots to burn a little deeper, and they're easy to cover up because as they burn, the top sort of ashes fall into them and it covers up the hotter stuff underneath. So timing is critical for weather. And then the next thing is wind will also help bring up the hot spots. But high wind days will actually start fires too. We've been out scanning where we've actually seen a fire start from a hot spot just because it was a good ignition temperature. And our timing usually all depends on the snow melt. So if there's a low snow load year, we will we'll start as early as mid-April and go into May. And also elevations. We have some areas where we're scanning in the mountains where we don't scan until the end of May just because of the snow load. We have to wait till the snow is gone.
So ideally, you
there's
want
another question there.
Ideally, you want zero snow, Adam?
Yeah, ideally zero snow. So we can have snow on the edges of the blocks as long as there's no snow over where the brush piles were. So typically, if your clearances are proper and the slash piles have been built away from the cut line or cut from the bush line, there won't be any snow on there. They're usually in the open, but once soon as they're clear, that's when we can start scanning after it's dried for a few days.
So,
I see one more question about a UAV. Utilizing UAVs with thermal payload. We actually have one. We have a drone with a thermal camera. Now, the thing is, it does work well, but it's one block at a time. And when you're doing a whole FMA, we can do a whole FMA typically in 1 or 2 days. If you're to do a UAV, you're probably looking at weeks to do it because everybody has to stay within sight of the drone, which means you got to drive to every block and utilize the UAV on the block. So by that time, you're looking well into fire season if you're scanning a few hundred blocks, because we have done it and it's not a cost or time saving. So the helicopter cost might look high, it's in the beginning, but when you look at using weeks of UAV time and labor, it gets rather expensive. But also on a UAV, if you wanted to, you could fly a LiDAR system. Like if you're just doing 1 or 2 blocks, I'd recommend to use a UAV. But if you got hundreds, the helicopter is by far most efficient.
Yeah, so if anyone is interested in either having it done with a helicopter or a UAV, you can we'll have a slide here later. You can reach out to myself or Nicole or Adam and we can line something up. Next slide.
All right, so usually when we're planning for the scan, all we need is usually just a geo-reference PDF map. We have got multiple programs we use in the helicopter. One's called Forestry. We just put on the map from the mill. As long as it's geo-referenced, we can put that on and then we can fly the blocks. Usually we like to see the block boundaries, and if there's a chance, some people do have where the burn piles actually are. That is ideal, but usually block boundaries, and once we're over the block, that's all we need to see, and then we can just scan. We just fly the perimeters of the block usually. We can use the ARC files if needed to, and just load them up onto the same program. And then for when we're done, we always record our track log, so we show exactly where we flew, and also for geo-referencing the video to our track log. So the PDF geo-reference maps, since that has come out in the last few years, that is by far the easiest way to do it. Most mills, that's what they do already. They just use the PDF maps and it works. Like I said, we have multiple different programs we can use. We have iPads mounted in the machine. We just reference the iPad for navigation. And then on production, as I mentioned before, with comparing it to UAVs, it's very quick to get between blocks, and just an approximation of 100 hectares a minute, possibly more, just depends on the sight lines of the camera. If there's not much residual in the block, we can scan blocks that are 500, 600, 700 meters wide in one shot, in one pass. As soon as we got residual blocks or residual stands, we have to make sure we don't miss anything, because trees are a good insulator for the infrared camera. So we have to make sure we don't have any trees in the way of what we're looking at. So if we got little fingers of blocks, we have to fly every little finger if there's a burn pile in it, just because we can't scan through the trees. And then another point is on when we're getting later in the morning and the sun starts to rise, we actually scan into the sun, because the sun heats up anything black, like anything that's charred. It'll show up in the camera immediately and it'll look like a hot spot. But how we prevent that is we scan into the sun, and we don't see the spots that the sun has been heating up. So as the sun rises, we can only fly one direction, and that's into the sun. So production does slow down. And then at one point, once the sun is heated up the block enough, it's usually more than 30 degrees is what we see on the camera. That's when we have to call it for the day, because it's just inaccurate. The camera's picking up everything that's warm, and it would spend too much time to sort out everything. So it's not efficient anymore. So that's where it's just early morning scanning. Or evening also works. If it's been cloudy during the day, we'll go out in the evening and scan in the evening also. As long as the sun is low on the horizon, we're fine.
How many hours or minutes would you say you typically would get on say in the morning and then in the evening?
Usually we shoot for about 3 hours of flight time. So on that, if we can eliminate as much ferry time as possible to the blocks, and then once we're scanning, the camera's on, as long as we're going for blocks. So I would say on video usage, like 1 hour of video time on the infrared camera will cover most of an FMA. Like I'm saying probably about a couple 3,000 hectares on an hour of footage on the camera.
Cool. That's a lot of ground to cover.
Yep. So yeah, as you get further north in Alberta, where the blocks are long ways apart, it's yeah, you're just full speed, go over the block, and then full speed to the next one. So the faster we can get there, and the most efficient way to scan is to eliminate the ferry distance. So here's where you got to use a fast machine.
You guys operate in Alberta and British Columbia, right? In Saskatchewan, or?
Yep. Most of our work is done in essentially from the number 16 highway north all the way up to the territories border, BC and Alberta. And we got fuel caches all throughout that area. So all of northwestern Alberta and northeastern BC is what we cover. And we'll go, if the jobs are large enough, we'll go other locations also.
Yeah. Any more questions? We'll move on to the next slide.
I touched on this one already a little bit, and with this job, we can take the clients on board And as I mentioned before, you can do your block checks, final clearance, and you could scan this at the same time. We usually try to put the camera and the client on board on the same side of the aircraft. And this way they can see exactly what we're scanning and have the good sight lines to see the block. And the other thing is, as we found one time before, if the client's on board, we can take immediate action on these hotspots. Sometimes time is critical, and we can get the hotspot out either by shovels, or if it's too big, you can start calling the equipment immediately. So we can action very fast. Yeah, and I see one question at the bottom, one statement. In the experience, you have a tough time with the sun heating up rocks mid-morning. That is why we're limited to usually 9, 10 o'clock we're done, because otherwise the sun will heat up the rocks, and stumps are another bad one. So, but as soon as you got all those hot spots, that's when we just got to quit, because you just can't differentiate between a sun heated spot or a hot spot on the ground. So for us with our company, I've been doing this for over 20 years of flying. And also I've started out as a scanner on one of the jobs 20 some years ago. And I've been doing it on and off for the last 20 years also. So scanning from the air is different than scanning from the ground. It's little different techniques, and I'll train the scanners. We use a third-party company usually for our scanners right now, but I'll train all our scanners before they go flying, as it is a little bit different and it happens fast. So because of the areas we're covering, the scanner's got to be on top of it, and they'll have the experience. By the time we're done training, they'll have the experience to pick out hotspots out of a couple 100-hectare block immediately. A lot of times we can see these hotspots very fast. And also, as a pilot, for flying the cameras into the blocks, your angle for your viewing of the camera is critical. So you could be too high, too low, you could miss stuff, or you can get a lot of false positives. So knowing where to fly and the most efficient way to do it just comes from experience. So I see one more question down there. Are we rated for IFR at night? Not yet. Our new ones are IFR certified. And over the next year, we'll be looking at starting to fly these blocks either at night or early morning. One of the things we're trying to get over the next year is nighttime rated, so we can go out at night and be at the block by first light in the morning, so we can actually start scanning. There's lots of rules and regulations about where we can work at night, and a lot of it is we can only transit. We can't actually work in the block, so we can get there at night, and by the time the sun is up, we'll be able to start scanning, and that will save hours of time and get us a lot more productive for the day. So we are working into that over the next year. So I think that's all I have here.
Yeah, I just had our Forteck list of services up on the screen here. Adam, do you want to maybe just touch a bit on Gemini's services and what exactly you guys provide for helicopter services?
Okay. For the forestry industry, pretty much everything we do, everything you guys can do on the ground, we're the transportation to get there. So we'll take in layout personnel. Same with the environmental, any kind of inspections. just if you have remote sites, we could take you in there. Another thing we do, a spin-off of the company, we actually do drone training. So we can actually do some of the drone certifications. I'm a certified flight reviewer for Transport Canada. That's a spin-off of what we did with Gemini here. Tree planting, we'll move personnel, all the trees every year. Right now, we're doing about 4.5 to 5 million trees by air and all the planters, and that's our regular year. So we'll move in that many trees. Brush pile burning, we can do that with the aircraft also. We can touch on that at a later date when it comes up, but we do a lot of remote access brush pile burning, and it is very efficient. Just a quick example, it's almost the same cost as doing it on the ground, except we do in 1 hour what it takes 2 people 1 day to do. So in 1 day, we do a week or 2 of people on the ground. The other thing is we have the ability to remote seed, like grass seed and cone collecting. And yeah, a few other things. If you need a hot shot out there, we can set you up. If you got a remote access that you can't get to, you need something there fast, we can get there with a helicopter right fast. And also a couple other things we do with the helicopters, your regular tourist stuff. If you want to go sightseeing, we can take you out there too. And we'll be having an updated website here, and it'll show a little bit more of the aircraft and of what we can do and where we go.
Awesome.
Okay, I see there's one more question there. Do your scanning techs do any other courses to run the cameras or just in-house training? So we don't send them to the forestry course in Hinton. That's more for just straight forest fires. And that is for ag and forestry specifically. They're usually trained by FLIR. So we'll do, our techs will be trained as a thermographer 1, 2, or 3. And that's the minimum part they need is the thermography training. And that's right from the FLIR camera providers. And then the other training I'll do in-house is just the aerial stuff. So they have to know how to use the camera and the capabilities of it first. And then the aerial parts, I'll do the training from there because that is very specific to what we're doing.
So yeah, we just have our standard hiring and recruiting slide here. So if you are interested in working with Forteck, we're hiring for forestry technicians in Alberta, British Columbia, as well as waste and residue surveyors in BC. And we do have a couple summer student openings as well. So if you are interested in applying with Forteck, you can email a resume to careers@forteck.ca. And Adam, I'll have you on here. I heard you guys are hiring as well for pilots.
Yeah, but we're looking at 2,000-hour pilots right now, no low time guys. And we just have one more position to fill for the summer, and it's just contract just for the summer position.
Cool. All right. So yeah, if you want to get in touch with anyone on here to discuss doing scanning or any sort of other services that you need done, you can feel free to just scan the QR code there on the screen. You can just pull up your phone and I think just hold your camera over it, and it should give you a link, and that'll allow you to set up a 30-minute consultation, or could be 15 minutes with Nicole. So Nicole, if you want to just maybe unmute yourself and introduce yourself quickly.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining today. Yeah, more than happy to answer any of your questions and find some answers. if anything didn't get answered today.
Awesome. So yeah, my contact info is there as well as Nicole's. And Adam, did you want it if it's scanning related? Do you want him just to contact one of us or contact you, or how did you want to do that?
Either way. So
Okay.
yeah, contact Branden or Nicole or myself.
Okay. Awesome.
Michael, do you have a question there?
Yes. Hello. My question is that so your floor camera can be mounted on the helicopter?
No, we use it just still as a handheld, and we use it through the window of the aircraft. The mounted ones, we just find that are rather expensive for a very short time, and we can use the latest technology of the handheld cameras, which is easier to use actually. It gives us more opportunity to use different machines also.
Oh, okay. So you said that, and your floor camera just handheld.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah.
Thanks for the question, Michael. Do we have any-
Regarding the drone service and what kind of a drone you have now?
We've had an Arian Ranger with that has the FLIR camera on it, and that one's large enough to fly almost any kind of block, any kind of payload for a camera. But we just find the helicopter is more efficient than the drone. And then we'll use other smaller drones for just video and photogrammetry and LiDAR.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Got it. Okay.
I think,
Thank you, Adam.
I think we use like a DJI Mavic 3 or something like that for a bunch of our different types of work that we do with Forteck, but we also have capability of doing some thermal scanning as well. But yeah, I guess it depends pretty much on the project size as to if you should use drone or helicopter, how scattered the blocks are and stuff like that.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for your questions.
Mm-hmm.
We still have another 10 minutes here. If anyone else has any other questions, feel free to chime in now.
So another question regarding you mentioned that you provide the drone training, right?
Yes.
So how many days you provide this kind of a training?
Say again.
How many days? How long?
It will take 2 days for the course, and usually one more day with just to do your flight review. So we allow 2 days, so that's your advanced course. And what we want is we want you to have your basic license already.
Mm-hmm.
Your basic UAV license, you could just write the Transport Canada online exam and get that. And do some, there's lots of training opportunity. But once you get your advanced license, yeah, we compressed it down to a 2-day course. And that should get you everything you need for your advanced license. Your advanced license is what you should have if you're going to do any kind of commercial work or fly anywhere near people or towns.
Okay. That is 2 days course and 1 day for the prepare and do the advanced field flight review.
Yeah. The flight review only takes about an hour, but usually we don't have time for it during the course.
Okay. What's the price for the training?
Let's see. I'll have to post a list here, but we are looking, I believe it is around $600 for the course.
Okay. How much for the 2 days training?
That's the cost of the course, the $600 for the 2-day course.
Okay. 600 for the 2-day
Yes.
cost.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay, that's good. Yeah. Thank you.
You do that right in Grand Prairie, right?
Yes, we
Adam?
do.
Okay.
Yep.
You do, you must go away from the airport to do that?
Yeah.
So they
And
just
we're
meet
making,
in the morning at Gemini?
yes, so we're at Gemini for the course. We're starting probably in May. We're going to be doing it at the college. And it's going to be through the Northwestern Polytechnic. And we're going to be doing a course there. Probably first one should be about May. And we're looking at running about 15 courses over the next year or two through the college. And some of the flight reviews will be actually be done at the college in the gyms. But you can start looking for that. I believe they're going to start posting that shortly through Northwestern Polytechnic. And
Mhm.
I'll be one of the instructors there.
Okay, okay, that's good.
Cool. We have a few more minutes left. If there's no other questions, maybe I'll just ask Adam a few questions. Why did you decide to choose a career in becoming a helicopter pilot?
Well, there's a few different things on that one. So I got a background in farming, and then, but beyond that, farming wasn't feasible at the time. I did engineering at, I did mechanical engineering and realized I didn't want to be in an office. And some of the criteria is I had to be outside, have to travel, it has to be challenging. It has to be upgradable, something that you're constantly learning every year, and being able to travel, and ideally running equipment. And lo and behold, helicopters fit every one of those. So, and that's and it's been a great career so far. Like I've been in it for over 20 years, 11,000 hours, and love every minute of it. And it gives me an opportunity to work with all different technologies in different fields. So I work with biologists, geologists, engineers. So you get to see everybody come through, and a good learning opportunity, and get to see what the rest of the world's doing out there.
What are some of the coolest jobs that you've done in your career?
Some of them, I'd say most of them are wildlife related, because the wildlife ones get me into areas that usually no one else can fly to, or no one can work in. So with that, I was able to work like in national parks, for example. It's very limited to, like, usually it's a 6-month permit and a good job reason to get into a park and work in and land in the parks. And I've got to see some really neat stuff in Jasper, Banff area, even Elk Island National Park outside of Edmonton. Get to fly a helicopter right inside the park there and have fun in that. But those are the most the fun ones. The other ones are even firefighting. It's nothing better than going out there and putting out a large fire by yourself. So those are also fun jobs too. But most of the flying, like the mountain flying, is probably my favorite, just because of the scenery and the challenges.
Yeah,
Hey,
awesome.
I had a quick question on your new choppers. What are these, EC-135s or something?
Sure.
So when you're running tree planters, or when you're running summer trees and whatnot, what kind of capacity comparison do you have for slinging trees with between like a Jet Ranger and an A-Star? Is it sort of in between? I haven't seen this chopper in the field yet. Just kind of wanted to know, like,
we are the
what's
first ones to bring it into the field, like the first ones to use it as utility work. And these ones will be doing the same as what our FX2s or a B2 A-Star are, except one more person for passengers. So it's 6 passengers, but we're looking at anywhere from 1,600 to 2,000 pounds of lift capacity. And by those numbers, it depends on how much fuel, how far we're going. Usually we like to use 1,800 pounds as an average, and that's what this one will hit. That's with the EC-135s. everything has been tested and written down, and your performance charts are very accurate. So if the chart says it'll do it, the aircraft will do it. And that's what's on our charts is 1,800 pounds, 2,000 pounds. So that'll be our capacity. The storage in the back is very large. So even without a basket like used on an A-Star, we can still carry just as much in the EC-135, except keep our same speeds, because a basket will slow the aircraft down by 10 to 15 knots. So there's a speed advantage. Especially as soon as you start going over 2 or 3 miles, that sure makes quite a difference in how much airtime you have.
Very cool. That's good to know. Thanks a lot.
Welcome.
Awesome. Thanks for that question, Monty. Do we have any other questions?
No, it's just pretty much the same as the A-Star. It just has one more person capacity, and you get a little quicker response time and faster and more capacity than the Ranger for sure. So sounds like a good upgrade. Probably be seeing more of them.
Safety is the other thing. Like I didn't realize it until, like, I've been flying single engine aircraft for the last 20 years. And until you start flying a twin engine aircraft, you don't realize how much safer they are. A lot of the systems in them are, like, first of all, everything's redundant. Then the way the aircraft's designed, like, we can lose our tail rotor authority and I could still fly away. One of the few aircraft that can do that. Even though it's a single tail rotor, but we can still fly away on these aircraft. And just, it's like driving a car from the 70s versus a car that's built now. There's a lot of differences. You don't realize it. They do all the same work, but the safety factor is phenomenally better. I see there's one more question about the fuel burn. The fuel is at full cruise. We do burn more fuel because now you got 2 engines. So we're looking at about 75 liters an hour more at cruise, or up to 75 liters an hour more. But when we are doing slower jobs, or if we're not at full max cruise, it's called economical cruise, we are almost the same as the A-Star. These engines are computer controlled, and as soon as they're not demanding power, they cut their fuel burn down considerably. So we can actually get our fuel burn down. If we're just doing surveys, for example, our fuel burn is actually less than the A-Star. So it really varies on how fast we are going.
Awesome. Well, we're pretty much on time here to be finishing up. So yeah, I really appreciate you hopping on today, Adam, and sharing a bit about your experience as a pilot and your information on thermal scanning, and as well as some other services that Gemini provides. And so yeah, wealth of knowledge. It was great listening to you talk today, and I'm sure our viewers got quite a bit of good information. We're hoping that we can have you on again to do another couple of topics related to helicopter work in the forest industry. So yeah, this will be posted on YouTube. Riley, will you be sending out a email link with the recording?
I will, yes. And I also put in the chat a link to our YouTube channel as well. So if anybody wants to check it out, it's in the chat.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, go there, check out our YouTube channel. We try to do at least one of these monthly. Our intent is to educate and bring some industry knowledge, a place where we can all get together and discuss topics in the forest industry. So it's great that you all attended today. We had over 30 attendees, so that's great to see. And yeah, we'll end off the show with that.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming.
Okay, thank you.